Hey guys, this is Sports with Dylan. It is the moment we have all been waiting for since Deshaun Watson was traded to the Cleveland Browns. Finally, Baker Mayfield has been traded to the Carolina Panthers. Like I said, this trade is no surprise to anyone because Baker Mayfield is a capable starting quarterback, but the Browns trade for Deshaun Watson. So the only way Baker Mayfield would play would be if Deshaun Watson is suspended or gets injured. But he probably wouldn't play because he is disgruntled with the fact that the Browns trade for Deshaun Watson, given that he is a capable starting quarterback. They spent the number 1 overall pick on him in 2018, so not that long ago. And yet now, he's just been unfavored in the building, and finally he was traded. On the other side of the trade, he got the Carolina Panthers. Also not a surprise, given that they need a quarterback. Their current starting quarterback was Sam Darnold. And I was shocked that the whole offseason, they didn't try and trade for a single quarterback. They just stuck with Sam Darnold. They ended up drafting Matt Corral in the 3rd round, but that's not going to be a starter. And besides that, they've got Phillip Walker. So, yeah, wasn't very confident in that group. But now, you've got a capable starting quarterback in Baker Mayfield. I think this Panthers team has plenty of potential now, because they have good receivers with DJ Moore, Robbie Anderson, which kind of makes things awkward given that Robbie Anderson tweeted out a couple months ago that he'd hate to have Baker Mayfield as his quarterback. And also, young Phenom, Terrace Marshall Jr. So, it's a pretty good receiving core there. You've also got, in the running back room, Christian McCaffrey, the superstar running back, but he's very injury prone. And you've got another young star in Chuba Hubbard, who we haven't seen much of, but when he played as the starter, when McCaffrey was injured, he was very good. The defense, though, is primarily what is going to be carrying this team. They have a star defense, and I know a lot of people have doubts about it, but I love it. Derek Brown and Brian Burns leading up the defensive front. You've also got free agent signing Matt Ioannidis, Yetur Gross-Matos, who's shown plenty of potential as a 2020 second-round pick, Shaq Thompson, and Corey Littleton. That's a pretty good defense, and that's just the defensive front 7. You've also got the secondary, which is even better, with your cornerbacks being Dante Jackson, J.C. Horn, and C.J. Henderson, who was traded for from the Jaguars mid-last season. J.C. Horn we haven't seen much of, given that he was injured in Week 3, and C.J. Henderson hasn't quite broken out yet, but Dante Jackson is a solid corner. And don't forget about safeties, Jeremy Chin, who is already very good after a couple of seasons, and also Xavier Woods, who was brought in from Minnesota, who's a solid number 2 safety as well. So that's a pretty good defense. I think that defense will be what carries this team. Maybe not quite to the playoffs. They've got a couple holes to fill still. But they are a solid playoff contender now. Now, the Browns really didn't lose anything in this trade, except maybe the trade itself. But they needed to ship out Mayfield, because he was not going to play with them again. So it made all the sense in the world to just get rid of him. They could get some draft capital. And they got a bit, but they did not get much. That's what happens when you hold on to your quarterback for long and basically show the world that you've given up on him. Because all they got was a 2024 conditional 5th round pick that can turn into a 4th round pick depending on how much time Baker Mayfield plays. They also retained $10.5 million of his salary, while the Panthers are only paying him $5.5 million of his $18.9 million salary. And for those of you that are thinking right now, Dylan, you suck at math, Baker Mayfield has taken a pay cut for this trade. That's how badly he wanted it. In return, though, he can make that back with incentives. So the Panthers got a really good deal out of this. At worst, a 4th-round pick for a quarterback who's very good. He might not be great, but he's very good. So I commend them for this trade. While the Browns, yeah, they're already running into cap troubles, and now they have to retain so much of his salary. I'm not so sure, but at least they got rid of Baker Mayfield. What would have made more sense is not trading for Deshaun Watson, just keeping Baker Mayfield. But that's the past, too late to change it. Now, my question is, what will become of current starter Sam Darnold? Because he's very expensive to keep on as a backup. And you've got Matt Corral and Philip Walker also competing for that backup job. Both of them could easily take it. Philip Walker played just as well as Sam Darnold this past season after week 4. And Matt Corral, they spent a 3rd-round pick on, so it's not like they're going to cut him. So I think that leaves Sam Darnold as the odd man out here. But the problem is, they're not going to gain anything from cutting him. They'd still keep all of his salary. It wouldn't clear up any cap space whatsoever. Which means it's kind of pointless. But what they could do is trade him. Now, they'd have to retain some of his salary, because he'd be a backup on pretty much every team. But here are a couple destinations he could be traded to. First of all, the Seattle Seahawks. This is the one opportunity where he could compete for a starting job. Because the Seahawks' current starting quarterbacks are either Geno Smith or Drew Lock. And crazily enough, I think Sam Darnold could be the best of those 3 guys. I still don't think it's the greatest idea for the Seahawks to trade for a quarterback when they're just trying to tank for a top 5 pick right now. It seems like, at least. But if they wanted to win a couple games, they could at least try. Plus, Sam Darnold, like Baker Mayfield, is a free agent after this season. So it's pretty easy to go, hey, he didn't work out, now he's gone. We don't have this huge cap hit on us and trying to figure out what to do with this guy. So it could be an interesting opportunity for the Seahawks, but I'm not so sure. Their quarterback room's kind of already full with Geno Smith and Drew Lock. Another opportunity would be the Houston Texans, because they don't really have any great backup quarterbacks. Davis Mills seems like a solid starter, but the Texans' offensive line isn't exactly elite. So if you were to get injured, Sam Darnold would be a suitable replacement for the time being. Or if you play so terribly, then yeah, just throw in Sam Darnold. The last option I could see happening would be to the 49ers. Now, some of you are really shocked from what I just said. And this is only if Jimmy Garoppolo gets traded or released. Because then they don't really have a solid backup. So it would make sense to try and trade for one. But they could also go into free agency and look at some of the options, such as Cam Newton, who they could sign to be a backup quarterback to Trey Lance. Speaking of Jimmy Garoppolo, now that there's one less team that needs a starting quarterback, where will Jimmy Garoppolo go? Well, it seems like the thing that 49ers are hoping for is that someone's starting quarterback gets injured and they do not have a suitable replacement in a backup position. You see, Jimmy Garoppolo was injured this past offseason, and he's been rehabilitating his shoulder. He should be back, so in training camp they can show off the fact that, hey, Jimmy Garoppolo can still throw. He still is the quarterback he was last season. Then teams will be more confident to trade for him. But he's not going to Seattle unless he gets released, because they're not going to do an interdivisional trade. It just doesn't make sense for either team. But if someone's starting quarterback were to get injured, then you would want to trade for Jimmy Garoppolo. Because there are plenty of teams with bad offensive lines right now. And plenty of injuries are just fluke. You can have the best offensive line in the league, and your quarterback can still get injured. Example, the Browns last season. They had a great offensive line, and Baker Mayfield still got injured. He didn't miss much time, but he was playing injured. And there are plenty of quarterbacks that could tear their ACLs just in training camp, or in an actual preseason game. Which then leads to Jimmy Garoppolo being needed on that team. So that's what's likely to happen. The 49ers should be hoping for some quarterback to be injured, and for a team to get very desperate. But finally, we've gotten the NFL trade we've been waiting for. I think there's a couple more trades that could happen. I'll make a video on that soon. But for now, all the NFL trades we've been truly waiting for are finally finished. So thanks for watching.